For me, it started with the topic of abortion, and that started about a year and a half ago. And I'm not exactly sure what triggered it, but I just had the realization that the way that we're approaching abortion as a whole, as a community, as Christians, I realized was not helpful, especially to the women who are put in these situations and have to make these decisions.
For those willing to listen, learn, and have eyes to see and ears to hear, this is the Nonpartisan Evangelical Podcast.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
Challenging the mindset of right-wing Christianity and encouraging people to have their minds renewed and hearts transformed.
What knucklehead, mush for brains evangelical leaders are trying to overthrow Trump? It's a special kind of dumb, and calling yourself a Christian.
Let's have better conversations about the life modeled in the Bible so we can truly tell the world God is not mad at you. This is the Nonpartisan Evangelical Podcast at npepodcast.com.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Paul Swearingen with you, Pastor Paul, the Nonpartisan Evangelical, and this is the NPE podcast today. Glad you're with us. We have a wonderful guest today that's going to talk about a journey of reconstruction. Remember, what we talk about a lot on here is it's okay to think, it's okay to doubt, it's okay to inspect your beliefs. In fact, I think the Bible commands us to do it. And so somebody that's been on that journey for a while is our guest today, Laci Bean. And she is an author that hasn't put her book to pen yet, but it's coming. And we believe you can voice that before it happens. And also the author and founder of a blog called The Deeply Rooted Mom. Laci, glad you're with us today. How are things in Idaho where you are?
Hi, I'm good. I'm so glad to be here. It's actually really sunny outside, which is making me desperately want summer to come right away.
So you're a deeply rooted mom. Tell us about your family. How many kids do you have and that make you a deeply rooted mom?
So I am a mom. I've been married for coming up on 10 years. I have 3 daughters, 6, 4, and 1.5. So needless to say, my hands are full 90% of the time.
Yeah, and trying to start up a business and a blog, and COVID jumps in the middle of all of that. So it's quite a crazy time, huh?
It is. And my husband started a business this year. We just saw the crazy and decided to jump in with both feet, apparently.
Other than that, so tell me about the deeply rooted mom, and we're going to get into other aspects of your story, but what is the mission and purpose? What does that name mean, the deeply rooted mom?
So one of my biggest desires is to help women, especially moms, not lose themselves in the chaos of motherhood, because motherhood is, for the blanket term, is just chaotic with kids and running a household or working on the side or from home or out of the home. It doesn't matter really what it is, but it can be very chaotic. And a lot of times we lose ourselves in it. We lose ourselves in the day-to-day. So my mission is to help moms see that they don't have to lose themselves and they can thrive amongst the chaos. And so I just offer tips for motherhood, chasing your dreams, building strong families. And that's a journey that I'm on as well at the moment. I'm definitely far from perfect from any of that. But I just like to offer my help and support and just community in those ways. So I call it the deeply rooted mom, but I'm not the only deeply rooted mom. I see as every woman that they can be same deeply rooted, because trees, they are deeply rooted and they get stronger by being pushed and swayed by the wind. And so when we pour into ourselves and make ourselves stronger, it just makes us have the ability to withstand when life throws a curveball at you, or you get dealt a bad hand one month or something like that. It helps you stay strong and deeply rooted.
That's good. So the trials of this season are actually good for us long-term, huh?
Long term.
Moms and dads, I assume. But yeah, that's really cool. So that's at thedeeplyrootedmom.com. Don't forget the at the start. Then we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I do love, and you and I have been getting to know each other, and I'm getting the honor of getting to coach you a little bit, and I love that. And we met through social media, and knowing your story now, and I was saying in the lead up to introducing you that you're on a journey, and I've been on this journey for a while of, wow, do I still believe what I used to believe? And those get scary. And so I'm excited to hear about your journey. Would you say that you are, how would you classify the journey you're on in your life right now?
I, for the longest time, was not sure how to classify it until I think it was one of your podcasts I was listening to. It was an interview. I don't remember their names. It was two sisters. And one of them said the word deconstruction, or maybe you said it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm going through right now, is just a faith deconstruction. But I see the kindness of the Lord coming in and not only just deconstructing, but also reconstructing at the same time. So it's a breakdown and a rebuild all at the same time, which is beautiful.
Yeah, that's Steph and Katrina, the sisters I talked to. That is a great podcast. And so how do you classify deconstruction, reconstruction in your life?
Okay. Expand on that a little more.
What did you hear that you said, that's it? What does that look like? What does deconstruction look like? You're a Christian, obviously, right. I'm hearing in what you say. And so what does deconstruction in a Christian life look like for you?
So for me, it started with the topic of abortion. And that started about a year and a half ago. And I'm not exactly sure what triggered it, but I just had the realization that the way that we're approaching abortion as a whole, as a community, as Christians, I realized was not helpful, especially to the women who are put in these situations and have to make these decisions. That if I was a woman in those shoes, that I would not feel supported or loved by the Christian community. And that just broke my heart. So it started with me writing a letter on my blog titled "To the Woman Who Had an Abortion." And it's basically just an apology letter to the women, like how they've been treated by the Christian community and how they've just got the short end of the stick. And it's not really debating whether abortion's right or whether it's wrong. It's just how we have handled it, or how we have not supported these women in these decisions and counseled them afterwards. As a whole, has not really been there. Some people do it, some churches do it. Just as a whole, that's not really what we do. So it started with that, and then it slowly went into the politics of 2020. And
So this is a recent development in your life, huh?
Yeah, majorly 2020. So 2019 was when I made the connection with abortion. And then 2020 was my view on politics changed drastically. And it was over time. This was over a 6-month period where I stood alone in the fact that I had decided that I would not be voting for Trump, which I was a Trump voter in 2016.
Okay, wow. That's big.
That is big. Unfortunately, I highly regret that vote now, looking back.
Were you, like, proudly, staunchly a Trump voter, or were you just, I guess I'll vote the Republican guy?
I think that in the beginning, I was not into politics. I was one of those people that was like, if it's a Republican, I'll just put my little check by it, because I was made to believe that, like, if you're a Christian, you just vote Republican. I grew up in Texas and down south, so that kind of that helps you understand. But so I wouldn't even research the candidates or anything like that. I just, Republican, cool, you're pro-life, is how I voted. And then I realized the issue is way bigger and there's way more to it. And TikTok honestly was like the place that really helped open my eyes. And I started not commenting. I just started listening to the other side and tried to take it in without accepting it as truth, but also holding my view with an open hand, and then trying to see where I sat in the middle of both of those and make my decision. And in reality, I fell very left side on a lot of these issues. And I had for some time, and I just couldn't, as a Christian, vote for Trump. I just couldn't do it because I don't think he aligns with Jesus himself. And I know that's not most widely accepted view.
So I love that term, hold with an open hand.
Yeah.
I say this often, let's hold our theology loosely. Otherwise we become really staunch. But so describe that, because we honestly are a little bit afraid of holding an open hand. I think on our beliefs in the evangelical church, we're afraid of being deceived or not discerning or false teachers. We hear all those things a lot. So how did this open hand happen, and what did that look like for you?
For me, it just looked like not talking and listening. And because I think that's a lot of the time is we come at it in a defense, and when somebody's not agreeing with our side, and we don't truly listen to where they're coming from. We just strongly hold on to our beliefs. It's what I call right fighters, is we feel like we are so right, we're going to fight you to the death on it. And no growth can happen when you're holding so tight to a belief. And I think it comes because of a fear of not wanting to admit that we're wrong, or that we believe something that probably, or was not true, or vice versa. So I think it comes from that. And I honestly, for me, it came to, okay, Jesus's greatest commandment was for us to love. And I saw that was the one area that we lacked the most in as a Christian and evangelical community. And I realized, okay, I want to do better at loving. And that's what's funny is in 2020, the Lord, I always pick a word for the year. And the Lord told me my word was love. And I was like, okay, are you serious? That's so bland. Is what I thought. And I felt that he said to me, I'm not going to show you the love that you have for others. I'm going to show you the love I have for others. And I instantly started thinking of the rapist and the murderer, and how Jesus loves them unconditionally. So I was like, okay, you're going to show me that love. And oh dear Lord, that was a journey. And I'm so glad that was the word he showed me, because it just helped me realize the areas that I wasn't showing love in my Christian walk. And I was holding too tight to beliefs, which was in turn hurting other people and not being what Christ asks us to be, or show love like he asks us to show.
Yeah. So love for the racist, love for the rapist, I should say. Sorry, I just did a video on racism. I've got it on my mind. But love for the rapist, that's a little bit hard for people.
It's still hard for me. Yeah. Ugh.
So people would say, yeah, but they get away with it. They just say their sin. They've confessed their sin and it's all good. What do you think?
I think that's a twofold question. And here's the thing, is that no matter what your action is, there's always going to be consequences to it, whether, especially here on earth, and you can be forgiven and you can have redemption, but that doesn't change that you still have consequences for your actions here on earth. And there may be, I don't know, maybe consequences in heaven. We all have our judgment day in front of the Lord, and we don't know what that looks like. And it's one of those ones that you have to make yourself right with the Lord, and we can't put that judgment on you. We don't know your heart or where you stand. Only the Lord does. So it's kind of one of those things you just got to trust the Lord on.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting question. And I would totally understand how people have difficulty with that. Like when Osama bin Laden when he was killed by Army Rangers. And I remember that night, people took to the streets and they were chanting USA. And I thought, I don't know that God is there. So there's this tension in all of that of, I think what I would hear God saying in that situation is, yes, President Obama, it was right for you to make that call to the guys to go in and perform their duty of protecting Americans,
Right.
and that God can be okay with that. And at the same time say, but this beautiful creation of mine was destroyed in the process, and grieving that at the same time.
Exactly.
So I think that's how I look at it is, yeah, there is justice in life, and sometimes that means these things happen. But I was not prepared to go to the street and start chanting and just having a great time that this person was dead.
Celebrating the death of a human.
Yeah. Yeah, that just makes us the other thing. And again, I did a post on TikTok the other day about Rush Limbaugh, how my heart hurt that he had cancer, while at the same time recognizing that he's done a lot to destroy our culture. I think he's done some very horrible, I think he built a very horrible genre of media, but so a lot of people were like, yeah, get him, give him cancer. But my thing is, I don't want to become the other side of the same coin. I want to keep my heart pure. So I guess that's how I see it a little bit.
Yeah, I see it the same way. And especially when I think just a more recent one was when Trump got COVID. There was a lot of the left side that were like, that's what you deserve. And I'm like, oh gosh, guys, that's no, you can't do that. We're trying to spread love. You can't say show love and then like cheer that your president got COVID.
Yeah. Give me love and grace, but then let me hold against others. That's really good. Were you always a curious kid or a contrarian kid, or a kid that, is this a new thing for you to step out of your box?
Oh, this is very new. Very. Growing up, I was always the kid to stay inside the box, not color outside the lines kind of thing. I was who I was told to be. I believed what I was told to believe. And the only time I ever colored outside the box or outside the lines was when I left ministry, which I call it a cult because it has very strong cult tendencies, is when I stepped out of that box and I left that ministry. Was the first time in my life I ever stepped out of my box. And then this year is the first time I've changed my views and been okay, in a sense, being the black sheep and having a different view and being okay with that. I have one of my best friends. We talk on the daily. Her and I have very different political views, but we're still good friends. And so I've come to a point where I'm okay having different views than other people, but it's also still very uncomfortable, and it's a process, and it's a whole new learning ball game of how to manage that and how to be okay not caring if somebody judges me for my view and not letting it affect me. Because used to I would let it affect me big time, and I've had to learn who I am and be strong in that, and it's still a process.
Wow, you just said a lot that I want to dig into there. And let's first start talking about the cult. Yeah, there's a lot I want to talk about from that. And so I was reading your blog on the 10-year letter. And so tell us about that. This is your sort of processing through of leaving a cult. So what made this ministry a cult in your mind? So
when I joined it, there were already rumors from people outside the ministry that said it was a cult. And I was like, no, it's not. But the things that made it a cult in my eyes were there was a covenant that we had to sign, and we had to live by a very strict set of rules. And the leader.
Like what kind of rules?
So there was like, you weren't allowed to date. You weren't allowed to listen to secular music. You weren't allowed to drink or smoke. You weren't allowed to get tattoos. And it wasn't that we thought that people like in leadership should just hold themselves to a higher standard. It was that we legitimately thought that anybody that partook in any of these kind of activities was sinful, and we judged them for it. And by signing this covenant, we put ourselves on a pedestal, and we had the mentality of we were like holier than everybody else that walked the earth, which made us very judgmental and mean to other people. As the ministry went on, there was a lot that I started to see that were red flags to me in the sense of it aligning with a cult. So the leadership, there was a lot of abuse of ministry funds. There was not like the accountability that you would see in a typical church or organization. There were some lies that went around that I found out afterwards, like stuff that was hidden from public knowledge. Trying to think. Oh, I tried to leave a couple times because I was just not, it wasn't my thing anymore. I wasn't aligning with their beliefs. And I tried to leave a few times, and I was a teen. So I was in college, and I started college early. I started around 16 years old. I started college and had graduated early. So I was very young. I was very impressionable, didn't have the best childhood. So it made me even more vulnerable. And so when I tried to leave a few times, the pastor told me that by me leaving, I was sacrificing my parents' salvation and my family's salvation. And so that weight was very heavy for me. And as a teen, I was unwilling to bear that weight. But yeah, it always got me coming back. There was a lot of manipulation, a lot of control for a lot of the members. Yeah, so the manipulation, the control, the abuse of ministry funds, the covenant and things like that just stood out, that it was cult. And also, if a member quit, they were shunned. Like, you weren't allowed to be friends with them. I got in trouble for having a friend that was outside the ministry. I would get talked to all the time. Why are you friends with her? And she was a Christian, but I was made to feel like I wasn't allowed to be friends with her because she wasn't in the ministry. Yeah, it had a lot of those strong cult tendencies.
Yeah. Yeah. And to put your family's salvation on the shoulders of a young person that makes me want to beat somebody up. I got to be honest.
Yeah. And not a lot of people knew that had happened, because it was like I was going to leave and I'd have a talk with him. And then he was very good at convincing you to stay. And he used that against me multiple times. And there was so much hypocrisy as well. Like, we were told that we were supposed to be representations of Christ everywhere we went. And that even meant like how we spent our money, and especially going to school and going to class and making sure we're on time and we don't miss classes. The pastor was in college and he missed class like multiple times a week and then dropped out after a couple weeks. It was as if we were held to a different standard than himself, which was very hard for us as teens. We're like, this isn't fair.
Yeah. So all of that began to make you think. And so what did the stepping out process, how did that go? And that, when you're not only changing your beliefs, but leaving your community behind, it's almost like a death in the family.
It was a huge mourning process. And I'm so thankful that how it happened. And it's a long story, so I'll try to sum it up really quick. But I left for the summer, and I did work about 4 hours away. So I was withdrawn from the ministry at that time, in a sense. And I was going to a church, and I met my husband. And so through an amazing series of events, his parents and his family, who have amazing relationships with the Lord, helped me see the cult mentality and how toxic this relationship was. And so I left, and I didn't leave on good terms. I didn't handle the situation very well, and I will definitely own that one. But I was a teen and I was scared, and I've tried to make amends as I've gotten older with how I left, but it just took a few years after that to really process through that. There were so many rumors. My husband and I got married very quickly, and there were so many rumors that I was pregnant and all of this horrible things about me, which were all untrue. And so it took me a couple of years to work through the process of mourning and healing. And honestly, in ways, I am still walking through that journey of healing. Yeah.
So often we blame the victim of abuse. And so trust me, there's never a point where you say, hey, you did a really poor job of getting out from under that abuse. I think you get out however you can.
That is true. I didn't think of it that way.
So I think far too often we put the impetus on the victim of abuse to honor and fix things. And I'm just kind of done with that. If I can absolve you of any of that guilt. Now, as we grow and we get healthier and say, hey, I didn't have any other way to do that, but now I have some tools to go back and revisit this, I'm all for that. And I think it's really healthy and powerful. Yeah. But yeah, If you're listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube and you're in an abusive situation, just get out. If it's messy and ugly and you make a mess, we'll deal with that later. Just get out of the abuse. So
agreed. Agreed.
It's interesting in your story. Like I said, there's a lot that I would love to unpack, but being a very sort of complicit young person for your life, a unicorn, it's pretty rare. Maybe what is rare is that you're going through this transformational time, but doing it like in a really healthy way. Because definitely there are times when we just go F it and screw everybody, and we throw all our beliefs out. And I did this in my life. I'm like, I'm an atheist and I reject all my Christian roots and all of that stuff. We can have that big swing. So I'm just really fascinated that, what did you cling to? How did you say, I'm still a Christian, but I'm just not going to believe some of the things the way they were, and stay rooted like that? I guess I could use that term from your blog.
Yeah. Knowing, like, God has done so much in my life that I can't pin or point to anybody but him. And I know that's truth. And so he's done so much, and he's protected me in so many ways, or saved me in so many ways, and made such an impact that I don't think I could have my pendulum swing to the opposite end, because I know he's real and I know his faithfulness. And so I think because of the times in my life that he has made such a huge impact, that it has protected me from going to the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think it's helped me see that something necessarily isn't wrong, that there's just more to the story that we aren't being told. And that's digging into the Bible and the culture of the times when this was written. And I've correlated it for people that it's, if we talk about a racist situation right now, and we talk about that same racist situation back in, let's say, 1950s and 1960s, the cultures are very different. So the stories are going to be different based on the culture that's surrounding it. And so by learning more of the story, by learning more of the history, we can have a better understanding as a whole, instead of just taking one verse out of the Bible and running with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We hear that a lot. And you were saying about learning to be okay with being the black sheep. How much were you the black sheep? How have people reacted around you as you've been in this 2019, 2020 process?
A lot of it, I'm just now recently like opening up, especially on social media, on where I'm standing, and especially on certain issues with family. I've opened up a little bit and shared with them. And some of the conversations have been really hard and really uncomfortable for both parties. And we're both trying to figure this out as we go, as we're sitting on, two different ends of the spectrum, or we're holding two different views, but still want to be in communion and connection with each other and in relationship. And some have been not the nicest, while others have come right alongside me and are on the exact same journey I'm on. And that's been probably the most uplifting thing, is finding other people within the community, especially people I know very dear to me, who understand on a completely different level, because they're walking this same journey. And it's just beautiful to have that community and understanding. I actually had a friend reach out and say that she wanted to go have coffee and talk about everything that's going on. And I just was very honest with her. And I said, I would love to have coffee with you, but I have to be honest, I'm terrified because some of the things that have changed this year are not widely accepted by the Christian community. And I do have a fear of losing relationship because of how much I lost when I left the cult. I lost everything. I lost the house I was living in. I lost the family. I lost my friends. I lost my job. I lost school.
Wow.
So I know that's a trigger for me. And I know that's something that I'm trying to work through, but trying to be open and honest about the journey that I'm on is hard. It's terrifying, because you're never going to have everybody on your side. People are never going to come alongside with your view 100%. And so you have to be okay with the opposition. And that's a process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you're still very much in the middle of it. And so this may not even be a fair question, but are you glad to be on the journey? Or do you wish you could go back to, I guess this is the old Matrix red pill, blue pill thing. Do you wish
Yes.
you didn't know what you know now?
Oh gosh. I have said this so many times, and I actually just talked to my husband about this last night, is the fact that there are times where I get so mad at God for just a moment, and I'm like, why did you have to open my eyes? Why did I have to see the other side? Like, why couldn't I just go back and be in my little box and not rock the boat? But then at the other side of the coin, I see the fruits of all of it. I see that my relationship with the Lord is better than it ever has been. I see that my knowledge of the Bible is more than it ever has been. And my heart for community and for like love and really knowing what it means to be the hands and feet of Jesus and trying to see what that's like in my life and how I can implement in my life is it's way better than any of the other stuff. So I feel like I'm both sides. I have moments where I'm frustrated, but then I know that it's all good and that I'll come out the other end and be even more grateful for it. But yes, I have those moments where I wish I could turn back time.
Well, I think that's a really important thing, because I'm encouraging people, like, get on this journey, but it's when you unhook one thing, then another. It's the string in the sweater, right? So for you, it was abortion, and then you start pulling on that string, and then other things start coming, right?
Yes, it feels like one hit after the other. And even my husband said this morning, he's trying really hard. He's trying to understand this, and he's not on the same journey as me, which is okay. We're just trying to figure out what this looks like for us. And this morning I just wanted one day, and something happened, and he's like, I feel like we take one step forward and 10 steps back. I'm like, I know it's so hard, but we're trying really hard to make it through this. And it is like the string in the sweater. You pull one, and it's every time, I feel like it's daily. Every time I turn around, I'm getting hit with something else, or it's a season.
I think that's really important for people to know. One day my wife was talking about something. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember she's, do we still believe that? Can we still do this? And it was just a reminder to me of how difficult our personal journey is for those around us. And in some ways, sort of part of my call in life is to be a disruptor. And so I say things that are really difficult. And it's been difficult for some, particularly people who are in my church in the past, to follow along. But yeah, just being really gentle with those around us and just say, hey, I get it. This is tough. And just trust me while I'm on this journey a little bit. Trust that we'll land somewhere together, that we can be on this journey and not have to be in exactly the same place and still be able to be okay. I think those are all really important things that you're expressing there.
Yes. And it's very hard. It's hard to go from being on the same page to not being on the same page, and then figuring out, okay, how do we navigate this new season of life? And unfortunately, it's not something that you can fix in a day. It takes time. And I'm still on it, so I can't tell you how long it takes.
Me too. And I've actually been on it for quite a while. So I don't know either what the end of that tunnel looks like. But so you said your knowledge of the Bible has increased. Can you give an example of that? Where is some place that something has been enlivened to you in the Bible that you hadn't really seen before?
Just realizing that the differences in the translations of the Bible and how words are translated differently, or how one word can be translated into multiple different words. So then our English language, for example, I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to butcher it, but I think it's Shiloh is
Sheol, the term for hell.
Hell, yes. So in the King James version, at some
now listen to me. I say Sheol like I know, but that's how it's spelled in my mind. But I may have that totally wrong as well.
So it's translated into hell, it's translated into grave, and it's also translated into pit. So for us in the English language, we see that as three completely separate things, but it's translated as hell, or it's, that one word's translated to three different words. So just trying to dig in and say, okay, what does that mean? Is there more behind this that I'm not understanding? And trying to learn more of the culture of that time in history, which I'm very new to this, and I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface. And honestly, I have ADHD, so I can't sit down and digest all this information at one time. So little pockets of information are how I learn. So TikTok has been the best thing for me during this season. And I have found some amazing creators that I have followed that are Bible scholars and theologists, or however you say that. They've been to school and done all the things. And so taking it from so many different perspectives and then putting it together has been helpful. And yeah, that's a journey I'm still barely into.
That was a revelation to me in all of this, that you can be Christian and disagree even on hell. Now that was one I thought we all knew. It was definite, it was clear. And then I started doing some study on it and was like, oh my gosh, this isn't nearly as clear as I believed. Why don't we ever tell each other this,
No, that's why TikTok has been so amazing. It's opened my eyes to so much. And I think that's what's hard for people, is when you start questioning things that we've been taught our whole life, they start feeling like you're questioning God himself or Jesus himself. And I have to always go back to, just because this is the journey I am on doesn't mean I'm questioning God or I'm questioning Jesus and his mission and everything, or heaven. I still believe in all of that. It's just all these other little things that may be not the way that we were taught. And so I think that's hard for people because they feel like we're questioning God, not little bits and pieces of what we've been taught.
Yeah, it's really well said. And yeah, I wish we could talk for a few more hours on that, because it scares people around me sometimes, but I'm like, guys, do you recognize that the canon of the Bible was argued over? People disagreed that these were the 66 books of the Bible. And there's a slight chance that they may not have gotten it all right. And there are chapters in there that some argue shouldn't be in there. So if we could just agree, it's an amazing, mysterious book that inspires my life. And I'm not tossing it out by any stretch of the imagination, but I also want to be realistic about what it is.
Right.
In large part, so when kids go off to school, they don't get told another story and it all makes sense. That they're able to hold their theology loosely and not have to give up their faith because their theology gets trashed by somebody else.
One of the things I learned was actually from you when you were talking about the part in the Bible, it says Jesus wept, and how we see that as, my interpretation of that was like, oh, he cried, it's so cute. When you were talking about the culture and the interpretation of it was that, no, he was wailing. And I'm like, that's a whole totally different perspective from crying to wailing. So that, yeah,
there's so many things. One of my favorites, in fact, someday I want to do a series on really misused verses in the Bible. And one of them that I hear more than any that I really hate is, the poor you will always have with you. And so people say that we're always going to have the poor. No, do you know that's not even close to what Jesus was saying in that passage? And he was quoting a scripture from Deuteronomy, from a passage that then it's like me saying, if the world gives you lemons, you automatically fill in the rest of it in your head. And Jesus was saying, the poor you will always have with you. And then they filled in the rest in their head, which is the rest of that Deuteronomy passage, which is, and your job is to take care of those poor people. And so he was actually mocking the the people in the house there. Anyway, a long way around of saying sometimes we just take that verse and go, here, see? And then you have to dig into it deeper and go, no, that's not what was being said in the context of the culture and the Bible and everything else. So I'm totally with you on that.
Yes.
And it's to me, it starts to be a fun adventure then too, to say, wow, what else is there in there? So
Right.
it's a great adventure you're on. And so again, very early in this process for you, do you have some sense of a bigger purpose for all of this for you at all? And can you even begin to imagine anything like that for you?
I think for myself personally, I don't know, like making my impact on the world, but for myself personally, I think it's more of getting out of comfortable Christianity, because I have felt so lukewarm for so long and been stuck in my little bubble that my hope and my belief is that through this process, I will learn how to truly be the hands and feet of Jesus and get out of the comfortable little place that I have created over the last 10 years and learn to get a little messy. Jesus was messy. He was out and amongst the people, and we see church as these four walls, and I'm like, Jesus was so beyond the four walls, and I want to be beyond the four walls. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know where it's going, but I'm trying to let the Lord guide me and be willing to go and do whatever that is at the moment.
Wow. So that is spectacularly beautiful. And
thank you.
Yeah. I'm just ruminating on that a bit, to be willing. Jesus was just willing to sit with people that cost him his reputation and potentially cost him his career. And I would say in the story of the woman caught in adultery, he put his life in danger for a woman that even today's Christians would say was a woman of ill repute, who was having sexual relationships out of wedlock, all our Christian terms. And I guess that's who I want to be. That's the beauty of the journey, is I want to be more willing to be in front of the rock throwers than to be within the rock throwers. So yeah, It's really cool. Love that. Love that you're doing that. That's really amazing. And now you're doing this blog, and you wrote this 10-year letter, and you're doing it. So what can we expect to see more coming out of the Deeply Rooted Mom?
Oh, it's just some of the same stuff of helping women find their passion, set goals, and just see beyond our day to day. And I'm hoping that I am able to, I'm doing the emotional wholeness and well-being coaching with you, which plug that. It's really good. And anybody and everybody should sign up for it. Just going to throw that out there for you.
Love it. Love it. I did not set that up by any stretch.
Not a paid advertisement. But now, see, okay, my ADHD brain I lost my track of.
Yeah, we were talking about the blog and what's going to happen on the blog coming up.
Okay, so I'm hoping to have more posts on just helping give advice on a healing journey and finding wholeness and being confident in who you are and emotional well-being. So as I learn what you're teaching me in our group, I'm hoping to pour that out to others on my blog and just be a resource and comfort for those.
Oh, that's awesome. And do you know of Rachel Held Evans?
I don't.
Okay, so this is somebody you're going to have to get familiar with. So she passed away, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, tragically, I think, to cancer, but she started blogging and it ruined her life forever. Just because God began to take her on a journey, and then in sharing that journey with the world, her life changed dramatically, and she lost her community and a whole lot of other things, but impacted the world through being very transparent and sharing that change with the world. So I could see that being your journey and really being a door opener for some, and then a healer for people as they walk through that door. So excited to see where that goes for you.
Thank you. I'm feeling all the emotions. I'm excited. I'm nervous and I'm terrified. Because it's the internet. So we all know how the internet goes, and people say things behind a keyboard that they would not normally say if they were in front of your face. So
Yeah.
always going to have that kind of backlash. So trying to get some thick skin.
Yeah, getting comfortable with getting the with being the black sheep. You can
Yeah.
do it. You can do it. Laci, this has been awesome. I appreciate you being on your journey and sharing it. And I think as you've listened to other podcasts that have ministered to your spirit and your core, I think this will be one that gives other people permission to do that walk too. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's such a huge honor.
Very cool. All right. So tell us again, where can people find you on social media?
On social media, so my handle on all platforms is at The Deeply Rooted Mom, and then my blog is thedeeplyrootedmom.com. And then if you want to email me, it's Laci, Laci, at thedeeplyrootedmom.com.
Very cool. All right, Laci. Awesome. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again.
Thank you.